For the last 2 years, it's COVID that's disrupted Christmas plans. This December, it's another crisis that's gifting chaos. A series of rail strikes landing the week before Christmas. Union bosses say they've been left with no other choice and accuse the Transport Secretary of stopping a deal being put to them.
We have been reasonable, but it is impossible to find a negotiated settlement when the dead hand of the government is presiding over and blocking a resolution in these talks. The employers are in disarray. The whole process has become a farce. In the meantime, our message to the public is we are sorry to inconvenience you, but we urge you to direct your anger and frustration at the government and the railway employers during this latest phase of action.
Industrial action was paused earlier this month for intensive talks with rail companies, but broke down yesterday, leading to the latest action. The RMT say the new strikes will each last 48 hours. The first stretching across the 13th and 14th of December, the second beginning just a day later from the 16th to the 17th of December. There'll then be two more across the 3rd and 4th of January and again on the 6th and 7th. There's also a ban on overtime from the 18th of December to the 2nd of January. Over 40,000 RMT members across Network Rail are involved in the strikes, affecting 14 train companies. Rail workers have been striking since June in a long-running dispute over jobs, pay and conditions. And the most bitter rail industrial dispute since the 80s looks no closer to being resolved.
A week before Christmas? I didn't know that. To me, that's not good.
Good luck to them, because like for Royal Mail, it's the same thing. We work through the difficult times and they don't appreciate it.
I'm a pensioner, basically. I may be dressed in a suit, but I'm still a pensioner on less money than these guys. So, we've got to manage. They've got to manage. Everybody's in the same boat.
It's just not on what they're doing. It'll affect me, but I'm not arsed.
Strikes are meant to be inconvenient.
The government says strike action risks putting the future of the entire industry in jeopardy and they should come to a fair agreement. The union says without an offer, they had no choice but to walk away. Today's announcement is a glimpse of what's to come elsewhere. Nurses, university staff and Royal Mail workers also have strikes planned. And junior doctors, ambulance workers and teachers are being balloted too. That much spoke about summer of discontent has now extended to winter.
Well, earlier I spoke to the General Secretary of the RMT, Mick Lynch. I asked him what he had to say to the millions of families that will be affected by the strikes.
Well, we are genuinely sorry for that. We don't want to cause this disruption. I know people have heard that from us before, but that's down to the government who have pulled the plug on negotiations yesterday afternoon at 1 hour's notice, where the most senior people in the industry were going to meet with me and make me an offer in writing on pay, conditions and jobs. And that was pulled within an hour to go. And I think that is the hand of the government that has done that. And we have to respond to keep the dispute alive. We gave them 2 weeks to come up with some proposals, having suspended industrial action before. So now we have to come back to that and keep our dispute alive. And I'm afraid we've had to escalate the action.
But you are going to become known as the Mick Lynch who stole Christmas.
Well, possibly. We haven't put action on during the Christmas period. We've avoided the period where people will be returning to their families and travelling around to get back for the holidays. There's no strike action on the week before Christmas, and we're waiting for the return to after the holidays to business as usual to go back to industrial action. We don't want to disrupt people, and I don't want to be the Grinch. Secretary of State Mark Harper has got to create the atmosphere where we can get a settlement, but at the minute I think he's the main obstacle, frankly.
But we've had these rolling days here and there. It's been like playing Russian roulette with commuters and transport. How long is this going to go on for? I mean, how long until next year can we expect this kind of misery to grind on?
Well, our members voted very heavily to revalidate the mandate, so they had a really strong vote last week under the government's restrictive legislation. So we've now got a 6-month mandate into May next year, and we will keep going until we get a settlement. It's a straightforward industrial dispute. But what the problem is here is that the train operating companies are being subsidised. Every time we go on strike, the government writes them a cheque for £30 million, so they're not suffering any losses. They're continuing to post profits and pay out dividends because this strike action doesn't affect them. It only affects our members and the travelling public. The Conservative Party are too busy ripping themselves to bits, and the train operating companies are too busy paying dividends because they don't suffer the revenue loss. So it's a very strange dispute, which could be settled very quickly, I believe, if we had people who were competent in the government and in the Department for Transport.
I mean, if you look at the landscape of strikes across the country, it almost looks like a de facto general strike. Would you go so far as to call for a general strike?
Well, I can't call a general strike. That's up to the TUC. What I will call for, and I am calling for in any meeting, is coordinated action and synchronised action, because it's the duty of trade unions to maximise their influence and their power in this debate about the future of the economy and the shape of our society and the world of work. So it would be daft and reckless of any union not to coordinate with other working class people to maximise their influence on the government and the employers. So yes, I would support a general strike and coordinated action.
And what we're seeing at the moment might be a general strike in everything but name.
Well, that's right, because it's very difficult under the laws in the UK, which are the most restrictive in the Western world, to have these strikes. But I'll be working with other trade union general secretaries to coordinate that action, and I'll be working with the TUC to coordinate action as far as we can. And if that means generalised strikes rather than a general strike, that's the way it will be.
And finally, Mick Lynch, where would you like to see the Labour Party's front bench on this issue? Would you like to see them, on the picket lines with you?
They're very welcome to our picket lines and all the other picket lines out with the nurses and the clinicians and the ancillary workers right across our society. What Keir Starmer and the front bench need to work out is what are their values, who do they stand with. There can't be neutrals in this struggle. You're either on the side of the poor, the working class, or you're on the side of the super rich. And if they're just going to be a vanilla version of the Tory party, they'll need to think again, because I don't think that the working class people of this country are ready for that. They want a strong Labour Party that takes a side in this debate. And we want socialist politicians to be on the side of the working class. So they need to sort that out and identify with us, not with the Daily Mail and the Daily Express.
Mick Lynch, thanks very much.